Hello, my name is CarX82 and welcome back to my Gregtech New Horizons series. Today we are actually going to be doing a base tour. I'm going to do an overview of my entire base. Now I am not planning on going into anything super details here with this video. I am planning on doing a tutorial series for the mod pack, and I'm looking planning towards maybe doing 10-minute episodes and kind of breaking down maybe the different ages and some of the more complex processes. So that is kind of the plan moving forward here. And when I get that, hopefully I can start recording some of those relatively soon and start getting those put out. But just getting the time to record outside of my normal recording schedule can be a little bit difficult at times. So basically, let's go ahead and get started with this. This is the entrance to my base. Now I do get asked what dimension I'm in quite frequently, and for the record, I am in a garden dimension from Utility Worlds. It's called the Garden Dimension, and in this mod pack, it is actually, there is no recipe for it, but there is a quest. It is in the IV age, so tier 6. And you get a choice between a void portal and a garden portal. Void portal is a sky block with a black kind of sky, and then the garden portal is a super flat land. I think it's plains. Yeah, it's a plains biome, and completely flat. 5 blocks of dirt and then a layer of bedrock. So if we look at all the buildings, are all kind of built up, and that is because I need basements, and there is not a whole lot of room to work with. That's my only complaint with the garden dimension. I wish it was probably about 8 blocks as opposed to 5, I think it is. Yeah, we're at Y level 5. So I kind of wish it was like Y level 8, maybe. But yeah, this will take me to the overworld, but we're not going to worry about that because I don't have anything out there, really. But this is the main building where we kind of enter, and this is where all my A system is and all my drives and stuff. So this is the main building. But I think before we do that, let's take a look, because in order to kind of understand how the base is powered, because we see there's no power gen anywhere in there. It is actually, I have this central building right here. So this large building right in the center of the base is actually a super large power station. And this is basically where all my power gets fed into. I generate my power, and it gets put into here. So these are my turbines generating power. And then it gets sent out to the base. So this line is basically powering the entire base. It goes out to the base. And if I break this really quick, if I drop down here, we can see this comes from the power station, and this gets sent down, and there's tunnels basically going to all the different bases. So I have a power line and I have my AE line, and that goes to every single building. And that is how everything is powered in the entire base. So I just kind of wanted to point that out in case you're wondering how everything is powered. Basically, if we look at the map, the roads, every single one of the kind of roads has a power line running underneath it and a cable running underneath it. So that is how everything is connected to the A system and the power network. But with that in mind, I will kind of just go over each building. Most buildings do have a basement, which has my A system coming in and the power line. So for example, in this building, the power is coming here, and this is powering the entire base. And this one actually has a separate one for my A system. Usually it's on the same side, but this is where the cables come in. And then they split off into P2P network or whatever. So that is how all those are done. But like I said, this is my main room. This is basically for any single block machines that don't really have anything to do with other single. So like I have an advanced extruder here. I don't really use this, but I had nowhere else to... It doesn't really go with any other the buildings, and we'll see how I've kind of set up the buildings. But I think this is producing like my food that I use, and there's a couple other machines in here. Not all of these are getting used anymore because they have been replaced, but like this is producing rubber bars. This is producing seed oil for lubricants and different things here. So this is kind of what this building is for. This is producing silicon dust and yeah, different things. Epoxid sheets and all sorts of stuff. So this is kind of like a miscellaneous room, and got distilled water and all sorts of stuff in this room. And eventually I'm probably going to replace most of these with other more efficient processes, but for now these work, and pretty happy with that. This is a Enderchest. This is where all my mining materials come from, the different planets. There are many different planets you can travel to, different solar systems, and I do all my mining on the different planets, but I'll get into that, like I said, in another episode. This is the power that my base has. As we can see, it's going up, and we're just filling up that big round kind of multi-block. This is what that is. And I have a couple kind of checklists, to-do list, and these are kind of the end goals for the mod pack, or for my playthrough. That's kind of what I'm planning on. But yeah, let's kind of look at the base. So like I said, each of these buildings is connected to the A system, and there's power, and most of them have a travel anchor in them, so I can get around the base because it is quite a large base. As we look on, I'm right here. So it is 10 chunks by 10 chunks, pretty large base. But basically we have a forestry farm underneath here. It is doing some of my crops, and we have metal crops right here producing silver and some seed oil right there. And this is kind of where I do all my crops. I will get into IC2 crops also. Next to it, I have a tree farm on fertilized dirt from random things, so that's why it's growing so fast. It's not being fed any fertilizer, it's just the fertilized dirt is really good. And that is farming spruce trees for producing UU matter, basically. Next to that, we have a mob farm. I think right now I have Enderman in there. I can also do giant chickens for stem cells. Yeah, there's the Enderman. So if I need Ender pearls, I can turn that on. If I need giant chickens, giant chicken eggs, that's a thing. So this building is a lot of my, I call it my multi-factory, all of multi-blocks. So this is a multi-block for packaging tiny dusts into larger dusts. As we can see, 9 little dust went in there, and it produces a large dust. This is a precision laser engraver, basically. I have all of my different lenses in there for crafting up circuits. This is for making dusts, mixing dusts together. Implosion compressor for making TNT, or using the TNT to compress certain things. This one is for making plates, so turning ingots into plates, or double plates, even quadruple plates. I have a forming press here, which does a lot of the circuit kind of recipes for AE2. So this is where all kind of these are used. I have an extrusion, 2 multi-blocks for extruding, and these do all these different kind of recipes, tiny pipes, and fluid pipes that we need, and we have gears and all sorts of stuff. So each one of these has a different shape. So rings we have, and then plates like that. For these are more like plastic plates and stuff, and then we have rods. That's kind of what this, and a wire mill. This does the wire mill because some of these endgame recipes require thousands of different items, and being able to process them in large batches really helps. Next to this is my clean room. This is a multi-block structure, and some recipes do require a clean room. So if we look at a circuit recipe, it will say on the recipe that it needs a clean room. This is what this multi-block is, and it has to be inside here, and it has to be running at 100% efficiency, or there is a chance for the output to be voided. So that's what this kind of room is. It's basically the white, these plastic blocks. It's just basically a square, but I've kind of built up around it, so it doesn't look just like a giant white square. You can see some of the blocks in there though. Now, down this path, if we look at the map, they're all kind of connected. And basically, these are all related to this central building right here. We can see this whole lot of spaghetti of fluid pipes branching out to all the different kind of buildings. And I just like how they look, to be honest. Some people probably think this looks horrible, but I just love how, like, just this mass of different pipes going to different buildings. Eventually, this is going to be a whole building around it. Haven't got them built up yet though. So hopefully this will look pretty cool in the end, having all these stuff. But basically, oil comes in from a pump. I'm pumping oil, heavy oil, and then it gets sent to a distiller. And then that gets broken down into some different fuels. We're getting heavy fuel from here, and that gets turned into all these different fluids, light fuel, naphtha, hydrogen, sulfide, and fuel. In this chemical reactor. The cracking unit turns the steam, and then it gets distilled again, broken down into all these different fluids. So like toluene and benzene and ethylene and butene, and these get pumped to the different buildings which utilize these. So all these buildings kind of relate to oil, different byproducts from oil. And like I said, I will get into this in another episode, but basically this is where I'm producing explosives. So I'm producing TNT here in this building. In this building is different types of rubber. So we have silicon rubber, and we have like some styrene here. I know this isn't technically a rubber, but polystyrene. We have styrene butadiene being produced in this one. And next door to this is a high-end plastic, and it is a very complicated recipe. So as we can see, I have a whole bunch of different inputs and redstone control, turning it on and off for the different processes. And this is all for one fluid basically, and that is polybenzo something. This fluid right here, polybenzamizo something. And that is used in high tier kind of recipes. So that is what that is for. And then this is a lower tier plastics. So we're producing a Teflon and polyphenylene sulfide, polyvinyl chloride, polyethylene. So these are kind of in this building. And I actually have a random kind of setup underneath here, and that is a cobble gen. I had nowhere else to put it, so it kind of just ended up here. But we're basically producing cobble gen, or cobble, from water and lava. The high-tech way with Gregtech. So that's kind of where I'm getting my cobble. But for the most part, I try to do all the building, all the machines up top. I don't try to put anything underneath in the basements. That is basically for cable and AE. This is where we craft up circuits. So this large machine does the circuit boards, and it is fed with different fluids. Each different circuit board requires different fluids and stuff. And we got glowstone, gallium arsenide, vanadium, nequata. So those are all kind of feeding that. And this is used in processing different types of circuits. So that's what that is. And I do have, very occasionally, as we can see, this is kind of where the power comes in. I was probably working down here, that's why this wall is kind of missing. But we have our A coming, and the power comes in to the P2P tunnel. But occasionally I have little setups because I didn't really have anywhere else to put this. For the moment, this is producing a sulfuric acid is what this is doing. So that's going in there. And then next door, this is kind of, these are connected, but it's kind of like two separate buildings. This is my the assembly line for high tier components. And this is where these are all crafted up. This is quite complicated underneath here. I'm doing some Steve's Factory Manager stuff. I may do a video on Steve's Factory Manager and automating the assembly line. But that will be for another episode. Next to this is kind of a complicated mod, and I'll definitely do a tutorial on this because it is very confusing. There's not a lot of information out there on this mod, but it is a quantum computer and it's for researching, scanning, kind of high tier, kind of recipes. And this is a data bank. This is where all the recipes that get scanned go in. So all these are full of data sticks, and these are connected to the assembly line with that cable. It kind of runs underneath, but yeah, we'll go into that definitely at a later point. This building was an old power setup. I actually don't use it anymore, but basically it uses a little bit of magic to create lava, to turn it into steam, and use the steam to create turbines, or steam for turbines, and they produce power. But this setup is kind of outdated now. It doesn't produce a whole lot. It was great at the time, but now it is completely been outclassed by some of my other power gen. I just love the setup, so I left it up. This is a vacuum freezer. This is where all my hot ingots come in from being smelted, and this large multi-block mega freezer. There's like the input buses down here and the output buses right there. And next to this, eventually this will have a kind of tower around it like that. But this is where I smelt all my ingots. So this is my multi-block smelter, and it is absolutely huge. The mega blast furnace. And underneath, this is all my different recipes for all the different ingots. So that is how that works. Basically, the dust come in here, gets melted, and they get sent to the vacuum freezer. And this is actually powered directly from the power station. There is a little tunnel underneath here. So there is the central bank where all my power is, and it is actually powered directly from that because I don't want anything interfering with this, because losing high tier ingots is a real pain. Next, we have a circuit assembly. This is where I produce all my circuits. So each type of circuit, later tier circuits, not all circuits, require these, but each kind of high tier circuit, like if we look at that crystal line, there is a circuit assembly line recipe for it. So basically after LUV, they require use of circuit assembly lines, and you need one per circuit. And yeah, I have 6 of them now, and then each of them have a different recipe. So that is that. Now, this large building in the middle, we kind of started there, but I will go over that again really quick. So we have our central kind of battery. It's basically a super huge battery. It's being fed by these turbines, so they're spinning. We're producing, at this point, 120 or 1.2 million EU per tick from 4 turbines, and that's getting sent into the substation. I can run 8 turbines, but I'm not running them because there really isn't a need at the moment. But yeah, this is my fusion reactor. So this is where I produce high-end plasmas. Right now we're producing tin plasma for the power. So that is turning, it's basically fusing silver and helium together. I can remember where the helium one is. I think it's hidden back here. It's this, basically, helium-3. So it's fusing those together, and creating tin plasma. And then underneath I have a whole kind of setup for this. Looks pretty crazy with the different fluids. These are all different filters, filtering the different fluids to different pipes and input hatches and all sorts of stuff. So really fun multi-block. I think the fusion reactor is probably my favorite multi-block in all of Gregtech. This is a tier 3 one. So fusion control Mark III. And yeah, that is that. So this is basically where all the power comes for the entire base. We have 4 turbines powering the battery and they get sent out. So I am a big fan of centralized power. I know a lot of people prefer to do like power in each building and transport the fluids around or whatever you're using to power. But I prefer to do one large kind of battery and then send out the power to the different buildings. All right, so we just got a few more here, so bear with me. Pretty large base when you hit endgame. This is my A system. Basically all the different channels for all the different buildings. These are where all the P2P channels come in. And this is the central computer system. Underneath here is all the computers, the auto crafting. I have one super large one and then I have a bunch of smaller ones. And these are where all the auto crafting, the crafting table recipes, these are all in here. So I have 3 banks of 8 in there. This is my ore processing room. This is kind of where when I do all my mining and we get the ores coming in from the miner, from the Enderchest in the center, they kind of get sent over here. I haven't fully figured out how I want to automate all the different crushed ores. I'm still kind of working on that, but we have like a thermal centrifuge. This is a multi-block. We have an ore washing plant or a chemical bath if we need. We have a sifting multi-block, centrifuge, macerator, smelter. This is basically smelting low-tier dusts like iron and stuff that don't need the blast furnace in there. So this is kind of like where all that stuff come in, because when you have super large amounts, like 200,000 silver ingots, it's going to take forever to go through one little macerator. So these are what all the multi-blocks are for. This is kind of a random room. I don't really have a name for it. It's called the gas building because originally it was crafting radon. This is producing radon. And this is producing argon and nitrogen. And this setup is a little outdated. These two I don't need anymore. They were producing originally this liquid air. But as I progressed, I am now pumping this from Pluto, I think. I'm getting liquid air from Pluto. So I no longer need to use these 2 machines, but I haven't broken it down. So that's fine. It's kind of random. And last but not least here, actually, just kidding, there's a couple more. But this whole building here is for platinum. And I will definitely do a whole series on this. But basically, platinum... When you mine up platinum, you get this platinum metallic powder dust, and this gets a whole bunch of different byproducts. In this room, this is basically the start of the whole platinum process right here. This whole room is set up for ruthenium, which is a required metal. So there is ruthenium. This whole building is for ruthenium, and this building over here is set up for platinum dust. So this is where I'm getting the platinum dust from, which are very important ingredients. And eventually I will finish the whole process. The other metals that go are part of it, which I didn't quite need to do at the time, but I will eventually need to do it. So iridium is one, so we'll process this. Osmium is another one. Palladium and rhodium is another one. So eventually these will all kind of be connected. I just haven't finished those all up. And lastly, I have some magic stuff over here. Nothing fancy yet, they're very basic looking, but I have my Thaumcraft stuff over here. So producing different Thaumcraft materials, because I am doing some magic stuff right at the moment. I have a node which charges the base through Thaumic Energistics. And I have my infusion altar over here, which is being fed with Thaumic Energistics. I have a portal to the Deep Dark, and I haven't decided what kind of building. I'm going to do kind of like a building around it. But that is basically the portal to the Deep Dark. And I am just getting started in this series with some witchery and the blood magic. So this is...
Sorry, I can only search by topic.
Blood magic, and Siri is yelling at me. Sorry about that. So yeah, that's basically the base. Yeah, hopefully it kind of like give it a bit of an insight to a end game base. It gets pretty complicated, and yeah, I'm hoping to start recording these tutorial series. I'll just kind of put them out when I make them. I'm not going to, probably not going to delay the series a day to put out a tutorial. I'll probably just do an extra, maybe on the weekend kind of thing. I'll upload it or something. But yeah, I haven't quite figured that out. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this base tour. If you would like to follow this series, I will put a link in the description to my channel and the playlist and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, feel free to subscribe and follow me in the series. We're up to about 305 episodes now, I think I've recorded. So there is quite a lot of content if you are interested in following along and how we got to this part in the series. But anyway, that's going to be it for today. So thanks for watching and have a good one.